They tried to break you, and for a moment, as it almost worked, you felt the weight of the world pressing in, the silence after betrayal, the grief after loss, the nights where hope felt like a lie whispered into the dark. But somewhere, beneath the pain, beneath the chaos, something remained untouched, still, unmoving, eternal. What if the real battle was never in your circumstances, but in your soul? This is the story of a man who lost everything, his freedom, his family, even his name, and yet became unbreakable. Viktor Frankl was imprisoned in the Nazi concentration camps, tortured, starved, humiliated. Every layer of his life was torn away. But in that living hell, he discovered a truth more powerful than any weapon. You may not choose what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. This script is not just about survival, it's about what happens when the world tries to destroy you and fails. It's about how meaning becomes fire, how suffering becomes light, and how when everything else is taken from you, what remains and is who you really are. First, they take your clothes, then your name, then your dignity. In the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl watched his life disappear, piece by piece, his identity as a respected doctor gone, his family gone, his future stolen. What remains when everything that once defined you is erased? You become a number, a body, a machine of suffering. But in that total collapse, Frankl noticed something strange. Not everyone responded the same way. Some gave up, others clung to rage, but a few held something inside, a kind of silent rebellion. A quiet fire, and that fire, it didn't come from outside. It wasn't built from reputation, wealth, or comfort. It came from something deeper. This was Frankl's first glimpse of what would later become his life's work, the realization that when all is stripped away, a deeper self remains, one that cannot be taken, only revealed. This wasn't optimism, it was defiance, spiritual defiance. In the most extreme form of suffering, he found the question that would define his philosophy. If everything is taken from me, who am I now? Frankl called it the last of human freedoms. Even when your body is caged, your mind remains free. Even when your dignity is torn apart, your will can still choose. In that brutal, freezing camp, Frankl realized something unimaginable. His captors could force him to suffer, but they couldn't force him to hate. They could humiliate his body, but they couldn't touch his soul. They could take away everything except one thing, his power to choose his response. This is not a comfort. It is a calling, because if we have that choice, then we also have a responsibility. Frankl discovered that meaning is not something you find. It is something you create, especially in suffering. You can suffer for nothing, or you can suffer for something, a loved one, a dream, a belief. Even in despair, meaning can be chosen. This isn't a soft philosophy. It was born in the ashes of Auschwitz. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to let darkness dictate who you become. Frankl chose to live for something deeper than survival. He chose to become more than his pain, and in that choice, he became free. We're taught that pain is something to avoid, but ancient traditions saw it differently. The Stoics believed that suffering reveals the soul. Buddhists taught that clinging to comfort is the root of suffering itself. Christian mystics found God in agony. Shamans walked through fire to awaken new sight. Frankl never sought this path, but once it found him, he walked it with eyes wide open. He began to see that the suffering he endured was not meaningless. It was transformative, not because the pain itself had value, but because of what it demanded from him, because of what it revealed in him. Pain can destroy, yes, but it can also strip away illusion. It can force the ego to dissolve, and from that collapse, something new can rise. Not everyone makes it through that fire, but those who do are never the same. Frankl's suffering became an accidental initiation. Spiritual crucible, not chosen, but endured with dignity. not glorified but redeemed through meaning. This is the mystery. Sometimes the path to your deepest self is through the place you most wanted to avoid. And if you survive it, you don't just survive, you awaken. You think they had the power, they had the guns, the guards, the laws. But Frankl saw something else. They were empty. The ones who inflicted suffering were not strong, they were afraid. They needed control because they had none over themselves. They stripped others of dignity because they had lost their own. They crushed meaning because they were hollow inside. And in that, Frankl saw a truth that turned the whole system upside down. It is not the victim who is broken. It is the oppressor who is lost. The man with no shoes, no name, and no food was spiritually alive. The man barking orders behind a guard was spiritually dead. This is the inversion. The ones who seemed most powerful were the weakest. The ones most brutal were the most broken. In trying to destroy Frankl, they exposed their own emptiness, and in surviving with meaning, Frankl exposed his soul's depth. They tried to break him, but they were the ones who broke themselves. What does it mean to become unbreakable? It doesn't mean life won't hurt you. It means that your identity no longer depends on what happens to you. You don't need titles or approval or safety. You need something deeper, something eternal. Frankl called it meaning, not pleasure, not power, not comfort, but a reason to get up one more day, a reason to choose dignity, even in pain, a reason to live as if your life has purpose, because it does. This is the inner citadel, a place inside you that no one else can enter. It cannot be stolen, only abandoned. When you root your life in meaning, you become untouchable. The job can be lost, the body can age, the people can leave. But meaning stays, and with it, your strength. Frankl didn't just survive. He came out of hell with a philosophy that has saved millions of lives, and that philosophy can become your foundation. When you're hurt, betrayed, or lost, ask, what deeper meaning is being revealed? Because sometimes, the breaking is where the light gets in. Here is the truth they could never understand. You didn't break because you weren't meant to. You were meant to awaken. What if your pain was not a punishment, but a path? What if everything they did to tear you down was the pressure that forged your spirit into something indestructible? Frankl once said, "What is to give light must endure burning." You endured, you burned, and now you shine. You carry within you the truth that saved Viktor Frankl's life. That meaning is stronger than despair. That spirit is stronger than circumstance. That love, deep, unconditional, unwavering, can survive even the darkest night. And maybe, just maybe, they didn't fail because you escaped. They failed because you emerged, more you than ever before. Not broken, but born again, from the ashes, from the silence, from the fire they lit to destroy you. You rose. What if suffering wasn't the enemy? What if it was the test that revealed the truth about you? There's a war going on, but you won't see it on the news. It's not fought with bullets or bombs. It's a silent battle, one that takes place in the hidden corners of your mind, and its goal is simple: to break your spirit, to make you forget who you are. They don't always do it with violence. Sometimes they use something worse, despair. They take your purpose, your identity, your light, and they wait for you to collapse. But here's the part they didn't expect. You didn't collapse, you endured. This is your story, but it's also the story of Viktor Frankl, a man who stood face to face with darkness and found meaning inside it. He was sent to Auschwitz, stripped of everything: family, freedom, name, but not his will, not his soul. They tried to break him, but something inside him refused to die. Before the camps, he was a psychiatrist in Vienna, a man of science, of logic, of healing. But then came the war, and everything changed. Viktor Frankl became a prisoner, not just of the Nazis, but of fate itself. Thrown into the heart of human suffering, he should have been crushed. But instead he began watching. listening, understanding. Why did some prisoners survive? While others gave up and died, it wasn't about strength or age or health, it was about meaning. He saw it clearly. Man is not destroyed by suffering. He is destroyed by suffering without purpose. In the worst conditions imaginable, he made a discovery that would shake the world, even when everything is taken from you. You still have one last freedom, to choose your response, and in that choice is your power. You were never weak. You were tested, and the way you endured, through heartbreak, loss, isolation, that was your rebellion. Frankl's insight wasn't just psychological, it was spiritual. Meaning is the human soul's act of defiance. In a world designed to make you numb, choosing to care is rebellion. Choosing to love is rebellion. Choosing to find purpose when everything feels empty is the loudest no you can shout at the darkness. Frankl wasn't the first to say this. The Stoics taught it. Buddha lived it. Indigenous elders whispered it into the fire. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control what it becomes inside you. They tried to make you a victim. You became a creator. They gave you ashes. You made a flame. You didn't